Good morning, everyone. Hi, hello, my name is EJ, and I am here again with another narrated art time lapse video for us to review and take a look at, and again, hopefully, learn a thing or two from. This is the reason why I do this. It's kind of a review for me, and for anyone that might be watching, at least they could learn a thing or two from my own review of my own art process and whatnot. So yeah, but let's talk real quick about what is going on in the scene first, before anything else, simply because this part that we're taking a look at is gonna go by real quick. So I'm currently on Blender right now, and I've already started. There's already quite a lot of stuff and objects in the scene right now. I do believe that my recording kind of got messed up in the very beginning. So like the very first part of this video, or the very first part of the art process of this didn't get recorded. But yeah, let me go over real quick about what has happened so far. So I basically did a bunch of basic shapes to set up the environment that this whole scene is set in, and I'm going to talk some more about that environment later on. So I set up like a base idea of what the whole environment was going to look like. After I set it up, it's basically like two cylinders, like you can see the top and the bottom. So there's the bottom floor. The bottom floor is sunk in. It's not very evident right now because of all the plain colors. You could somewhat see it in the render on the left. You can kind of tell that it's sunk in, but it's hard to tell on the right. But yeah, so the floor is sunk in, and of course there was like the roof and whatnot, and of course some columns that kind of surrounds the whole thing. So it's a circular kind of environment, and then of course the ones that we just watched is me setting up all the pieces inside the environment. So I set up the people, I set up basic shapes for furniture, kind of stand in for where the furniture is going to be and where everything's going to be, like where the people are. And I have a vehicle on there. It's not very obvious what it's supposed to be, but it's supposed to stand. It's a stand-in for a very small jet plane. So whatnot. So yeah. But yeah, real quick before I keep going on the process of this video, I'm gonna talk real quick about what the whole idea behind this piece is. So the prompt is Sky Pirates Den. I don't remember where the prompt came from. I have a feeling it came from Daily Spit Paint, right? And it came from Daily Spit Paint. I did a sketch, and then later on I did an actual illustration of it in my computer, totally unrelated to the original sketch from what I believe, but I was inspired by the term, so I went ahead and redid it again. Sky Pirates Den. Oh, I remember where I got Sky Pirates Den now. It's not actually from Daily Spit Paint. I think it's a reference to Final Fantasy 12. The rewards, where the trophies are, like, when you play a video game, you earn trophies. I think all those trophies were displayed in an environment called Sky Pirates Den, which is basically just a reference to Balthier's home, I do believe. I believe that's where Sky Pirates Den came from. So anyways, so I was inspired by that. I recreated the very first version of my own version of Sky Pirates Den a while back. I have a video of it somewhere on my channel. And I wasn't too happy with that one, so I redid it with this particular version and whatnot. So this is basically Sky Pirates Den version 2 is what I've been calling it. So that's where the idea came from. And I think this is going to be, I wanted to go over that real quick because this is going to be important later on when I review my illustration and whatnot. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about the process again. So after the 3D, I imported the rendered image into Krita, and then after I did that, I did a quick sketch. So when I do my quick sketches, I kind of have a tendency to like separate them. So if there's like a figure up front, you know, I would do a quick sketch of what that figure would look like in its own set of layers. Any other characters, I would separate them, and then of course the environment. So typically at least 3 or 2 if it's just a character, and the environment and whatnot. So yeah, I typically try to separate them. You could kind of see where all my quick sketches are. They're all kind of muted, and the opacity levels of them are kind of low. So like the purple obviously is the environment, and of course the red stands for the outfit of the girl. The girl itself is like black. I think I originally sketched it in black, but with the opacity turned on, it's looking like it's gray. But yeah, so I have all these layers of sketches, right? They're all just quick, they're all not very detailed and whatnot. And so after doing that, I merged them all together, or in this case I don't really think I merged them, because I'm looking at my layer selection right now and it looks like they're all in a group folder. So yeah, I just grouped them together. But anyways, after grouping them together and turning down the opacity, I start my clean line sketch, which is what we're taking a look at. It's just me adding all the details that I basically just want to draw and paint and whatnot. So yeah, I'm just going over those quick sketches, adding all the details that I wanted. I really love this part. I think this part is fun because this is one of the moments where I'm kind of, you know, just going with the flow, just kind of seeing all the shapes that are kind of like popping in my head from all the quick sketches that I've done. Because the quick sketch is all super messy and whatnot. And, you know, I'm kind of just seeing patterns on all those messes and kind of, you know, make something out of it. So yeah. Now after this clean line sketch, I'm gonna do my quick coloring process. Again, I throw in a bunch of mess, basically, is what I do. And then after quickly laying down some colors with my random mech brush by David Revoy, it's one of my favorite brushes. So I would throw in a few colors. After throwing in a few of those colors, I would work on the values. Values are very, very important, right? So I try to make sure that the value levels are all good and correct. You know, the darks are darks, the lights are lights, and all that stuff. And then I do some minor filter corrections, filter edits if I need to, you know. And then after I'm done with all that, I merge everything, including a copy of the clean line sketch, right? I put them all in one layer and then I smudge them, right? And then as soon as I smudge them, I get this nice base paint that I basically would put my details on. Sometimes I bring back the clean line sketch and put it on top of that base paint, you know, like combine them again, so just so that I could have a faint outline of where things are. And whatnot. Sometimes I don't. It just really depends on the situation. And so yeah, as soon as I get this base layer to work out of, I would basically just start my detailing process. And again, my detailing process is pretty much just rinse and repeat. It's just me delineating my edges, deepening my shadows, and bringing back the highlights and all that stuff. So somewhere in the middle of that process, I forgot to mention this. Somewhere in the middle of the process, I would do my flats. I don't really use flats like the way most people use flats, right? And flats are basically, you know, where flats, the simplest way for me to explain it is where you would marquee shape, you know, with your marquee selection tool or whatever, where you would select areas of your illustration and basically on that layer where you made that selection, you just put like a flat color and whatnot. A lot of people do flats as their basis for their colors, for their painting and whatnot. I actually use my flats for selection tool. That's what I use my flats for. So for example, if I wanted to work on the background, right, I have that flat color. Well, you could actually kind of see it right now. I'm working on some of the flats. So I worked on the flats on the sky, and then like the back area, and then of course the foreground. I made sure to split all of them because eventually I'm gonna have like this blur effect to kind of push the background, you know, farther back, and then of course the foreground would be super focused while the background is like blurred and whatnot. So I was kind of trying to do a depth of field of effect, and that's the reason why I did all those shapes where I selected areas that I know I was going to blur later on. So but yeah, I ended up putting flat colors on there so that if I ever needed to select that area, I could just go back to that layer with that flat color and just quickly select it with my quick select tool, with the magic wand, I think is what that tool is called. So yeah, I did that and whatnot. But yeah, after I did all that, right, I basically, oh sorry, lost my train of thought. Right now we're looking at the detailing, or me smudging. So this is me trying to get that base paint. And if you look towards the right, you can see that I'm predominantly just working on that one layer, right, at the very, very bottom. That's eventually what's going to end up as my base layer that I basically paint on. And you can see my detailing process has begun. So this is like me. Oh, actually, I'm doing some minor corrections with the shadows. So I'm darkening things. But you could see me start working on the sky at the very back. I'm painting it all one color. And of course, I'm trying to slowly take out all the leftover lines that I have from my sketch. And then now I'm working on jet and whatnot. So yeah. But yeah, so before I take my little break, because sometimes during my narrated time lapse, I do take a break in between. Let me talk to you about the idea and where the idea came from. So again, as I mentioned, the idea came from, I do believe, Final Fantasy 12. I think that's where the Sky Pirates Den word, the actual term of it, came from. As for the idea of the environment, this was actually from a dream. So I basically had this structure that I dream of at one point in time. It was a very vivid dream, and that's the reason why I had painted it twice already, right? Because I remember it very, very clearly. It's been almost a decade since I've had this dream, right? And this dream is basically set exactly like the way we saw it at the very beginning. It's like circular in nature. The ground floor is sunk in, and that's where everything is, basically. Like, you know, the whole house environment, your kitchen, your living room, your bedroom, and whatnot. If you look back at the very first version that I did of it, you'll see like parts of the bedroom. And then of course there's this one section where your bathroom is, and of course it's closed off, right, for privacy reasons. But everything else in the whole environment is just open. So the living room's open, the whole, it's like a loft basically that exists in this sunken in floor. And then on the part that's like not sunk in, it's kind of like this cemented area where you could park your vehicles. And since they're Sky Pirates, of course, what they park in that area is, of course, their jet, which is what we're seeing in the right now, the one with the pirate skull and bones like logo, that's actually supposed to be a plane. Since you don't see it in full, it's not very apparent what it is. But basically that's my whole idea, is that you get this whole circular structure, and then inside of it is where you could park all your jets and planes, right? And then you could basically just exit after this whole area and just fly off to do your adventures and whatnot. Now the last part of this whole idea, right, that is not very evident in any of my illustrations, is the fact that this whole structure is supposed to be floating. That's basically like the whole idea I have in my head, that this whole house environment of the Sky Pirates is actually up in the sky. It floats, and they can just get on their jet and fly in and out of this flying object. So it's not very obvious, obviously, from the illustration, because I'm concentrating on the interior part of it. And then on the very first illustration I did, it also concentrated on the interior part of it. So again, that whole idea that this structure is supposed to be floating, not very evident. But yeah, that's kind of like what the whole idea behind this illustration is. So anyways, I'm gonna go take a break, just let the video play for a second, and I'm gonna come back towards the end and kind of just go over my feelings and sentiments about this particular illustration. So yeah, just enjoy the show for now. So the last 5 minutes of this video, I'm basically just going to be working on the foreground character, which is this sky pirate female, obviously. And I spent a lot of good time with her, which is rightfully so. Like it's a good thing that I spent a great time with her, on her, simply because she is the focal point and like the subject matter of the illustration. So yeah. But yeah, let's talk about my feelings and sentiment about this whole piece. So first off, I wanted to talk about environments. I've done characters in environments quite a lot. I've done a lot of those illustrations, but very detailed environments, I actually don't do a whole lot. Like environments with architectural elements, like I don't have too much of it. Most of my environments are either nature-based, and nature-based environments are really easy to do. Like they're very quick to do. I mean, think of Bob Ross, how quickly he lays down a forest or a waterfall scene or just any environment is really easy to do. But man-made elements like a city or a very detailed building with Baroque Rococo elements, those are very hard to do in a speed paint, basically. And so yeah, I realized that I don't have that many environment illustrations that has a lot of architectural elements to it. Interior environments like a living room, whatnot, or a bedroom. Like I don't have many of those illustrations. And so this particular illustration from last year was kind of like an exercise for me to do more environments with a structural / architectural / interior environment to it, because yeah, it's one of the things just lacking in my portfolio. I'm really good with characters. I got to the point where I could, get a really detailed character within 5 hours that looks really good on the portfolio. Of course, the more time you spend on it, the better, right? But yeah, I don't have that many environments. They're all just mainly characters or characters in an environment that's kind of like quickly drawn, not very detailed, and doesn't really need to be detailed because the focal point is the character. So yeah, it's one of the things that I'm trying to fix in my portfolio. I'm trying to, do more exercises with that. And this particular piece was a good start to it in a way. Now, as for the piece itself, I'm not too happy with it. I think my biggest complaint about it are the colors. Red and green are really good contrast colors, and you can see that those are the predominant hues in this piece. But I think I haphazardly put them on this piece. Like I didn't think too much of where to put them. So the way they're kind of laid out in this particular piece, it kind of looks messy. Like there's no cohesion to the contrast at all. So I think that made the piece very, very weak, personally. I mean, I'm all about values, right? I've been preaching about values and how values are important. Colors aren't really all that, top notch in your list of priorities. But in this particular case, the colors were very much needed to be top notch because they're not cohesive on this piece. So it's one of the things that failed on this particular illustration. As for the special effects that I've done on this, a lot of them are really, really good. Of course, the blur was really awesome. The whole depth of field effect, where everything in the back is blurred out, and of course everything is sharp and on focus in the front. Like that's awesome. The lighting effects, again, those are awesome. Character design, the female is a super huge success, personally, in my opinion. The guy, it's okay. The guy could have done a lot more work. As for the interior piece itself, it's good, it's awesome, but it totally failed in portraying the idea that I have in my head. the idea I have in my head of Sky Pirates, then that is really hard to come across. I personally feel like I need to keep drawing it just to you know, get the point across of what I have in my head, because the first two illustrations, they're kind of okay in illustrating that idea. But anyways, that's the end of my illustration. I hope you guys learned a thing or two from it. I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you like this. Good night.